Good afternoon. I'm Christiane Donahue. I'm the director of the Institute for Writing and Rhetoric here at Dartmouth. And first of all, thank you for being here and for being willing to listen to what we have to say about writing and speech.
And I'm Josh Compton. I'm senior lecturer in speech for the Institute. We believe that the best teaching begins with the end. And by that, I mean that we ask, what are the intended outcomes that we have in mind for our students? What do we want them to know? How do we want them to be able to do what they know at the ends of our courses? And for answers, we draw on a range of resources. We look at the college's learning objectives. We depend on our knowledge of the disciplines. We ask alumni and others.
And then we plan after that what we need to do as teachers in order to get our students where it is that we've determined they should be. That process is fundamental to teaching success, and it's a priority for the Institute. Every student at Dartmouth comes through at least one of our writing courses in the first year, and there's a huge demand for speech. So these are actually amazing opportunities for foundational and transformative work.
We think that one of the best and often the most interesting ways to study writing and speaking is to actually write and speak. So that's what we'd like to do today with your help. In just a moment, we're going to pose 3 questions. And we ask that you first write down your initial responses to these questions. We're going to give you about a minute to do that. Then we're going to have you turn to someone near you and continue your responses in conversation with each other for about another minute. And then we're going to resume as a group to share some of these ideas.
So here are our questions, and we're going to have them for you on the screen at the same time. I'm going to give these to people. The first question is, how has writing or speaking helped you to be so successful in your career first? Have you recognized at some point a need to change anything in your writing or speaking in order to succeed at something new that you hadn't done before? And what had to change, and how did you go about it? So these questions are up here on the screen. You can tackle all 3 questions if you want. You can tackle just one. That's fine. You can do anything that you'd like with these questions. But if you would just take actually a little bit less than a minute to jot down anything that immediately comes to mind as an answer to any or all of these questions. Go for it.
Well, now we'd like for you to shift from writing to speaking. So please turn to someone near you and continue this conversation in conversation.
Okay. Let's come back front and center, and let's hear some of the things that you had to say. What are some of the themes that came out in the process of talking about this? What kinds of themes emerged about writing and speaking in your work on writing and speaking?
Well, Christine, I'll take a crack at the sort of second and third, and that is, I think the improvement requires the ability to be detached and objective about your own writing, and I guess in speaking as well. Up to and including having the willingness to throw it away and start over again.
So detached and objective, willingness to throw away. Okay, what else? What other themes came out of your discussion?
Well, I addressed the first one about being helpful in my career.
Yeah.
And I don't do it any longer, but years past, I'm in the oil and gas business, drilling wells, and that requires a lot of money, which I didn't have, so I raised money from investors.
Yeah.
If you're trying to raise money from investors, you're generally dealing with people who are fairly well educated because they have money to begin with, and be able to write. Of course, I had to visit with them personally and articulate and persuade well verbally, but the starting point was a concisely written letter that was very articulate and persuasive.
Yeah. Okay. So this is just a few minutes worth of thinking about this, and we've got this collection of very complex things that people need to know how to do in order to successfully write and speak out in the world, right? Very, very complex. Even just here, we're reflecting on that complexity. Imagine if you had to design a course where you were going to try to teach students to be able to do just this little bit of work that we've put up here just as a starting point. And since it's pretty impossible to teach students in one 10-week period, everything that they need to know for every situation they're going to enter into. The situation of having to write that first letter, the situation of discovering that you have to do something new and you don't know how to do it, whatever those might be, right? We tend to focus instead on teaching them processes, on teaching them core principles and a foundation that enables them then to make the adaptations that they need to make when they get into the new contexts, so that they have somewhere to begin, and then they see the challenges coming, and rather than just walking away from them because they don't have the ability, they understand how to adapt. They understand how to flex what they have in ways that get them there.
So as Christian was saying, without this academic approach, without treating writing and speaking as intellectual activities, we would instead be reducing writing and speaking instruction to skills training. Something like a top 10 tips on how to sound like a good public speaker, or top 10 tips on how to write. But that approach would fail our students because it wouldn't prepare them for the complexities that we just demonstrated in that short activity with you. So instead, at Dartmouth, we invite them into a whole new conversation.
So this idea of conversation is one that actually comes up a lot in speaking and writing, in the world of speaking and writing, this sort of using conversation as a frame for what we do. It's essentially a way, especially when we talk about the academic conversation, to get at how college writing and college speaking are about big ideas. They're about working with other people's ideas, not only your own ideas. They're about analyzing, synthesizing, exchanging, being able to sort of grapple back and forth. And out of all of that, creating new ideas, new knowledge, new understanding, and then being able to manage that new knowledge and new understanding and communicate it in ways that make sense.
And we do this by designing our pedagogy for specific outcomes. Now, each of our courses in the Institute has between 15 to 20 intended outcomes. And the IWR worked for 2 years with faculty to hammer out these outcomes. But today we've selected just one to share with you, one example, and we think this is an outcome that is applicable to writing, to first-year seminar, and to speech. So this is the outcome that we've selected. Students completing our courses should be able to enter the ongoing academic conversation about key issues, aware of multiple points of view, and able to collaborate with others on the reading, writing, speaking, and inquiry demanded by serious intellectual projects. And with such goals, our courses then create the ground students stand on for their college career and beyond. Our classes transform students' thinking, their inquiry, their creativity, their communication skills through writing, through speaking, and using media. Quite simply, this is an approach that makes thoughtful and informed communication possible.
And it certainly is not learned by writing AP exams and personal essays or reciting reports. It's learned by moving beyond that. Let's consider how this outcome might actually look to students. This idea of sort of entering an academic conversation, which we consider foundational to students' learning. Because the first-year writing course does actually work with every single student and therefore gives students a common intellectual experience, and because the speech course is actually cut across all disciplines, in both cases we see ourselves as making students ready for other courses that they're going to take after ours. But the outcome's also transformative. Students make the shift from sort of, I thought I knew how to do this, to now I see what I really need to do in college, how I really need to think about it. The work that they do looks a lot like what we did with you just in those first few minutes, at least at the start of a course that they might be taking. So taking that same outcome that we showed you a few minutes ago as one sample outcome for the courses, if we think about what we did together as a model, let's just tie it to this kind of an outcome. In just 5 minutes, we had you do 4 different things that actually all exemplify this particular outcome. First was to draw on your own knowledge and experience. Second was to work collaboratively in order to create new insights. Third was to use both writing and speaking in order to make sense out of your thinking. And fourth was to work collectively to move beyond individual knowledge while critically engaging with the ideas. Research shows that all of these approaches are very, very powerful ways to learn. Active learning actually stretches learners beyond sort of the existing ability they brought in to the new ability in their thinking, in their reading, in their analyzing, in their writing, and in their speaking. One of the things that we work with our students on, we don't only have them do written essays, we also have them do essays using various forms of new media. And this particular film, we're just going to show you 30 seconds of it. Let me emphasize before showing it to you that this kind of work does not replace traditional composing in our classes. It builds on and it enhances the development that students are going through. So the students working in these modes other than print actually learn about the same key issues. They learn about evidence, they learn about structure, they learn about clarity, transitions, everything. they often comment on how that helps them when they've worked in a different mode to go back to their written work, their traditional writing, and to learn about the kinds of choices they've had to make and how those can come out in this different work, and then how they can do it better in their written work as a result. So we see working in those other modes as actually a way to get them better at both, at doing the new mode and at doing the traditional print mode. So we'll show you just this 30-second clip from this student's first year seminar film.
China is one of the world's fastest developing countries. Its booming economy, with a 9% annual growth rate, has wowed the world. Yet to sustain this development, huge amounts of energy is needed. Currently, China uses 10% of the world's total energy to support 20% of the global population. When compared to industrialized nations such as the US, energy consumption is expected to double as GDP increases.
One of the things that we liked in particular about it, and as an example, is that it used some data, which our first year students hardly ever do. And that's something that we're working towards increasing their use of. And the mode, working in the mode of video seems to encourage students to think about that kind of evidence in ways that they don't seem to think about it in writing. So again, we can then get them to go back to the writing and say, why aren't you using it here? What's going on? So we're just going to give you a concluding sentence and turn it over to you.
What we hope that we've emphasized in the last 20 minutes is that writing and speaking, they have dramatically changed over time, but they've also kept some core values, like critical engagement with the world's problems, with existing material that students are reading and evaluating, with clarity, with structure, with good style. Then, now, and always, writing and speech are essential to a liberal arts education.